The alley was dimly lit, shadows stretching long across the cracked pavement. Olivia Carter, one of the city's most powerful billionaires, stepped out of the side door of an upscale restaurant. Her driver had been delayed, so she decided to walk the short distance to her car. The night was cool, the air heavy with the smell of gasoline and damp bricks. She held her designer purse tightly, heels clicking as she moved quickly. She didn't see the figures lurking ahead. She didn't notice the eyes watching her every step until it was too late. The trap had already been set. 3 men stepped out from the darkness, blocking her path. Their grins were wide, eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "Well, look what we got here," one sneered. A lady all dressed up, with nowhere to run. Olivia froze, her heartbeat spiking. She had faced boardrooms filled with ruthless investors, but this was different. Here, power and money meant nothing. Her voice remained calm, though her fingers trembled on the strap of her purse. "Step aside," she ordered. "You don't know who I am." They laughed, the sound echoing harshly off the alley walls. "Doesn't matter who you are," another man said, stepping closer. "What matters is what you've got." He jerked his chin toward her purse. Olivia backed up, her heels scraping against the uneven ground. The men circled, closing in like wolves. She tried to think of an escape, but the alley stretched behind her into darkness. For the first time in years, Olivia felt fear coil tightly in her chest. She glanced around desperately, hoping for a miracle. That's when she noticed a figure sitting, slumped against a dumpster, almost hidden by the shadows. At first, she thought he was just another homeless man, ragged, forgotten, part of the background the city ignored. He sat with his knees drawn up, his beard long and tangled, his hair hanging in dirty strands across his face. His clothes were ripped, and his eyes seemed closed. The muggers glanced at him and laughed. "Perfect," one said mockingly. "Now we got an audience." They didn't see a threat. Neither did Olivia until the man shifted, lifting his head. His piercing blue eyes cut through the dark like steel, focused directly on the danger. "Leave her alone." The words were rough, gravelly, but steady. The muggers paused, then burst into laughter. "What's this?" one jeered. "The bum wants to play hero?" The tallest stepped forward, kicking a tin can toward him. "Stay down, old man. This ain't your fight." The homeless man slowly rose to his feet. His movements were deliberate, controlled, unlike the sluggish motions they expected. Standing, he looked taller, his shoulders broad, despite the tattered clothes. Olivia's breath caught. There was something in his stance, something sharp, disciplined, like a coiled spring ready to strike. The leader scoffed, stepping closer. "You gonna fight us, huh? With what? That beard?" He swung his arm, aiming to shove the man back against the dumpster. But before his hand could land, the homeless man moved. His arm shot up, blocking the strike with startling precision. In the same instant, his foot slid forward, sweeping the thug's legs out from under him. The man hit the ground with a grunt, stunned. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't random flailing. These were practiced moves, sharp, efficient, deadly calm. The other 2 attackers cursed, lunging forward. The homeless man stepped aside smoothly, his ragged coat whipping with emotion. A fist came toward his face, but he deflected it with the heel of his palm, twisting his opponent's wrist until the man yelped. In one motion, he pushed him into the brick wall. The 3rd attacker swung wildly, but the homeless man ducked, striking upward with his elbow. The blow landed cleanly beneath the chin, sending the man staggering backward. It all happened in seconds precise, fluid movements born of years of discipline. Olivia stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. This ragged stranger, whom everyone else would have dismissed as powerless, was dismantling 3 armed men with nothing but his bare hands. The muggers regrouped, glaring at him with fury. "You're dead, old man." One spat, pulling a knife from his pocket. Olivia gasped, panic rising. But the homeless man didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed, his body shifting into a stance Olivia didn't recognize but instinctively knew was dangerous. It wasn't sloppy brawling. It was martial arts. The knife flashed in the dim light, slicing through the air toward his chest. With lightning speed, the man sidestepped, his hand snapping out to grab the attacker's wrist. A sharp twist, and the knife clattered to the ground. Before the thug could react, the man's foot drove into his stomach, sending him collapsing to his knees. The other 2 hesitated now, their confidence wavering. They had expected an easy target, not a fighter who moved like water, striking with perfect control. Olivia's breath came shallow. Who was this man? "Pick him up!" the leader barked, his voice desperate. The remaining thugs lunged together, hoping to overwhelm, but the homeless man was ready. He spun, his tattered coat flaring, his elbow smashing into one attacker's jaw. As the second grabbed for his arm, he twisted, using the man's momentum to flip him over his shoulder. The thug crashed onto the pavement with a groan. The leader backed up now, eyes wide, fear breaking through his bravado. "You're crazy!" he hissed, scrambling to his feet. The homeless man didn't chase. He simply stood, calm, his breath steady. The 3 attackers staggered away, cursing, limping into the shadows they had come from. Olivia remained motionless, her hands trembling, her purse still clutched tightly. The alley was silent now, except for her ragged breathing and the distant hum of the city. Slowly, she turned her gaze to the man who had just saved her. He stood tall despite his ragged clothes, his chest rising and falling evenly, his piercing eyes now softer as they met hers. For the first time, she noticed the scars on his knuckles, the discipline in his stance. He wasn't ordinary. You saved me," Olivia whispered, her voice shaking. The man lowered his gaze, almost embarrassed. "Did what had to be done," he replied. His tone was humble, not proud. He bent down, picking up his ragged cap from the ground. Olivia stared, her mind spinning. This man had nothing dirty clothes, messy beard, a life lived in shadows. Yet in the moment of danger, he had shown courage, strength, skill that even trained bodyguards lacked. She took a step forward, her voice steadier now. "Who are you?" The man gave a small shrug, brushing dirt from his sleeves. "Just Jack," he said simply. His voice carried both weariness and pride, as if those 2 words were all that mattered. Olivia studied him, her billionaire mind racing. She had sat across tables from world leaders, shaken hands with CEOs worth billions, but never had anyone surprised her like this. Jack wasn't asking for thanks, wasn't demanding recognition. He stood as if ready to fade back into the shadows, like a ghost of the city, but Olivia couldn't let him vanish. "You're not just Jack," she said firmly. "You fought like a soldier." Jack shook his head. "Not a soldier, just a man who remembers." His eyes drifted, lost in memories too heavy to share. Olivia felt a pang of curiosity. What had he been before the streets claimed him? A fighter? An athlete? A man with discipline drilled into his bones? Whatever the truth, it was clear. This was no ordinary homeless man. He carried a past hidden beneath rags, a past that had just saved her life. Olivia took a deep breath, her hands still trembling. "Come with me," she said suddenly. Jack frowned, his expression wary. "Why?" "Because you just saved my life," Olivia replied, her voice gaining strength. "And because I think there's more to you than this alley." Jack shook his head slowly. "You don't owe me anything." But Olivia's eyes were unwavering. "Maybe not, but I owe myself the chance to understand who you really are." Silence hung heavy between them, the city buzzing faintly beyond the alley walls. Emily's face flashed in Olivia's mind, her daughter, waiting at home. What if she had lost her tonight? The thought tightened her throat. She looked at Jack again. Truly looked. He was filthy, exhausted, a man the world dismissed. But in her darkest moment, he had been the one to step forward when others would have run. "Please," she said softly, "don't disappear." Jack hesitated, his jaw clenched. For years, he had chosen invisibility. But tonight, something had changed. The sound of sirens approached in the distance. Olivia knew the police would soon arrive, and with them, questions she didn't want to answer in an alley. She reached into her purse, pulling out a business card. Holding it out, she said, "If you won't come now, then take this. Call me." Jack stared at the card, his hand hovering. Finally, he took it, slipping it into his pocket. His expression was unreadable. Olivia exhaled in relief. At least she hadn't lost him entirely. The flashing red and blue lights appeared at the alley's edge. Olivia straightened, her businesslike composure returning. Jack stepped back into the shadows instinctively, his figure blending with the night. She turned to say more, but he was already retreating, his footsteps soft against the pavement. "Jack!" she called. He paused, glancing back only once. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Then he vanished into the darkness, leaving Olivia alone as the officers approached. "Ma'am, are you all right?" one officer asked as they hurried toward her. Olivia nodded, her voice steady again. "I'm fine." But inside, her heart still pounded. She told them only part of the truth, that men had attacked her, and she had managed to escape. She left out Jack's role, knowing he wouldn't want attention. Still, his face lingered in her mind, his movements etched into her memory. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed paths with someone extraordinary. That night, back in her penthouse, Olivia stood at her window overlooking the city. Lights glittered below like stars trapped in glass. She held Jack's card in her hand, turning it over and over. He was out there somewhere, invisible to most, dismissed by all. Yet he had saved her life with a strength no one could deny. Olivia Carter had built her empire on instincts, and tonight, those instincts told her one thing. This was not the last time she would see Jack Turner. His story and hers had just begun. The next morning, Olivia Carter couldn't focus on her usual routine. Her meetings blurred together. Contracts felt trivial. The image of the ragged man standing like a warrior in that alley haunted her thoughts. She replayed his movements, the precision, the calm, the unmistakable skill. No ordinary man fought like that. He wasn't just a drifter. He carried a hidden past. Her driver asked twice if she was feeling well, but Olivia only nodded, distracted. She had spent her life reading people, judging character in seconds, and her instincts told her that Jack Turner's story was far from ordinary. In the afternoon, Olivia sat in her office, a sleek glass tower overlooking Los Angeles. She pulled a card from her purse, the one she had given Jack. She doubted he'd use it. People like him lived outside the grid, away from calls and meetings. Still, she found herself staring at the phone, waiting. Minutes ticked by, then hours. Nothing. Finally, frustration overcame her. She had built an empire by seeking answers, not waiting for them. Rising from her chair, she called her driver. "Take me downtown," she ordered. "I need to find someone." The city streets grew grittier as the SUV rolled into older neighborhoods. Olivia scanned alleys and sidewalks, her eyes searching for the man who had saved her. At first, all she saw were strangers, faces blurred by hardship, shadows of lives forgotten. Then, near a boarded-up storefront, she spotted him. Jack sat cross-legged, his back against the wall, his head bowed. A paper cup rested by his side, barely filled with coins. For a moment, he looked just like every other man lost to the streets. But Olivia knew better. She stepped out of the car, ignoring curious stares. Jack noticed her shadow before her voice. His head lifted slowly, eyes narrowing in surprise. "You again," he muttered, his voice rough. Olivia crossed her arms. "You disappeared last night. We need to talk." Jack shook his head, already weary. "I told you, I'm just Jack." Olivia stepped closer, her gaze steady. "No, you're more than that. Men don't move like you did unless they've been trained. Who were you before the streets?" His jaw tightened, silence stretching between them. "Finally," he said, "that life's gone. Doesn't matter anymore." "It matters to me," Olivia pressed. Jack laughed bitterly. "Why? So you can feel good about saving the poor bum with a tragic past?" Olivia's voice sharpened. "You saved me, Jack. Not the other way around. I owe you more than gratitude, but I can't repay a ghost. I need to know who you are." Jack's shoulders slumped, his eyes weary. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a sigh, he whispered, "I was a fighter. Karate, judo, you name it. National tournaments, medals, discipline, respect." His voice cracked. "All gone now." Olivia's eyes widened. She had suspected as much, but hearing it, confirmed, struck her deeply. "What happened?" she asked softly. Jack's gaze darkened. "Injuries, bad choices. People I trusted walked away when I fell. Sponsors disappeared. My family, they couldn't live with the failure I became. And once you slip far enough, the world doesn't give you a hand. It just steps over you." His words hung heavy, filled with years of bitterness. Olivia swallowed, fighting the urge to comfort him. She knew better. Pity wasn't what he needed. Respect was. "You're not a failure," she said firmly. Jack barked a laugh. "Look around, lady. Do I look like a champion?" His hand gestured to his rags, his paper cup. Olivia's voice softened, but remained steady. "Last night, you stood against 3 armed men and didn't flinch. That's not a failure. That's strength most people only dream of." Jack's eyes flickered, torn between disbelief and longing. For years he had drowned in his losses, convinced he was nothing. But her words dug deep, unsettling the walls he had built. He turned away, muttering, "Strength doesn't feed you." I want to dawn." Olivia crouched, lowering herself to his level. "Then let me help you. Not with charity, with opportunity. You've got skills, Jack. Skills this world still needs." Jack shook his head quickly. "I don't belong in your world." Olivia leaned closer, her gaze unwavering. "Then make your own. Teach, protect, mentor. Whatever path you choose, don't waste what's left of you here on the pavement. Silence stretched again, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Jack whispered, "Why do you care so much?" Olivia's answer was simple. "Because you cared enough to save me." Emily's face flashed in Olivia's mind again, and she shivered. What if Jack hadn't been there? What if her daughter had grown up without her because 3 thugs had ended her story in that alley? She looked at him, truly looked. He was dirty, weary, hidden behind a beard and grime, but beneath it, he was still a fighter, a protector, a man worth saving. "Come with me," she said again, more firmly this time. "Not as charity, as someone I want on my side." Jack hesitated, his blue eyes searching hers. Slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. Olivia led him back to the SUV, ignoring the whispers of passers-by. The driver raised his eyebrows, but said nothing as Jack slid into the back seat. He sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable, his hands twisting together. Olivia glanced at him, offering a small smile. "Relax. No one's judging you here." Jack scoffed quietly. "Lady, people always judge." But even as he said it, he leaned back against the leather seat, his body easing slightly. Emily wasn't there, but Olivia knew her daughter would have grinned with delight at seeing him again. They drove across town to a quiet gym tucked between warehouses. Olivia unlocked the door, the faint smell of sweat and canvas greeting them. Jack froze at the threshold, his eyes widening. The place was simple punching bags, mats, a mirrored wall, but it radiated memories. His body tensed as if stepping into a sacred ground he no longer deserved. "Why here?" he asked. Olivia's smile was calm. "Because this is where second chances begin. Show me who you are, Jack." His hands shook slightly, but he stepped inside. At first, Jack only stood there, staring at the mats. Memories surged: competitions, students, nights of training until his body screamed. He could almost hear the echo of his younger self shouting ki-eyes into the air. Slowly, he toed off his battered shoes, stepping barefoot onto the mat. His body remembered, even if his spirit doubted. He raised his arms, shifting into a stance. His feet found balance, his breath steadied. For a moment, the ragged homeless man disappeared, replaced by the disciplined fighter he had once been. Olivia's breath caught. She was witnessing transformation. Jack moved slowly at first, basic punches, kicks, blocks. His joints ached, his muscles protested, but his body remembered. Years of training could not be erased by time or hardship. Each strike grew sharper, each movement more fluid. Sweat rolled down his forehead, dripping into his beard, but his eyes burned with focus. Olivia watched in awe, her heart racing. This wasn't a man of the streets. This was a warrior forced into exile, now stepping back into the light. She clapped softly. "That's who you are, Jack. Don't forget it." Jack stopped, his chest heaving. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, the beard, the ragged clothes, the hollow eyes. But behind them, he saw something else. A fighter, a survivor. His hands shook as he lowered them, overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't name. Olivia stepped closer, her voice gentle. "The world took a lot from you, but it didn't take this. You still have it, and you can choose what to do with it." Jack swallowed hard, tears burning in his eyes. He hadn't cried in years, but tonight he couldn't stop them. Olivia didn't pity him. She stood steady, giving him space to feel without shame. "You're not invisible anymore," she said firmly. Jack let out a shaky laugh. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, Olivia replied, but it's possible, and I think you're ready. Jack sank onto the mat, burying his face in his hands. For so long, he had lived as a ghost, convinced his story had ended. But now, with every punch, every breath, every word from her, he felt something he thought was gone forever: hope. Over the following days, Olivia kept her promise. She arranged for Jack to train quietly in the gym, away from the eyes of the city. At first, he resisted, ashamed of how much he had lost. But each session lit a fire in him. His movements grew sharper, his confidence stronger. Olivia sometimes brought Emily, who watched wide-eyed as Jack demonstrated kicks and punches. You're like a superhero, she whispered one evening. Jack chuckled, shaking his head. No, kid, just a man trying to remember who he was. But deep down, her words mattered. Not everyone approved. Olivia's advisors raised eyebrows when they learned she was spending time with a homeless man. It's risky, one warned. Your reputation. She cut him off sharply. My reputation can withstand kindness. His life cannot withstand being ignored. Jack overheard once, his chest tightening with guilt. You don't have to defend me, he muttered later. Olivia met his eyes. I'm not defending you. I'm investing in you, and I don't invest in failure. Her words echoed in his mind, long after, fueling his determination. One night, as Jack finished training, Olivia asked quietly, Do you ever miss it? The ring, the crowd, the respect? Jack paused, sweat dripping. Every day, but I thought that part of me was dead. Olivia's voice was steady. It's not dead, it's waiting. And maybe it's not about fighting for trophies anymore. Maybe it's about fighting for people who can't. Jack looked at her, his eyes narrowing. She wasn't talking about competitions. She was talking about purpose. And for the first time, he considered that his skills might still have meaning. The city was dangerous, and Olivia knew it. Rivals, criminals, opportunists, being a billionaire, painted a target on her back. Jack had proven once that he could protect her. But what if she gave him the chance to do it fully? I want you to work with me, she said finally. Jack stiffened. As what, your bodyguard? Olivia nodded. More than that, as someone I can trust. Jack hesitated, fear of failure gnawing at him. But the memory of Emily's smile, the feel of strength returning to his body, pushed him forward. I'll try, he whispered. Olivia smiled, extending her hand. Jack stared at it for a long moment before clasping it firmly. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was standing again. The city outside the gym buzzed with danger and opportunity. But Jack Turner was no longer invisible. He was a fighter reclaiming his place in the world. And though the road ahead would be filled with battles, both on the streets and within himself, one truth burned clear. His story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Weeks passed, and Jack's presence in Olivia Carter's world grew stronger. At first, whispers followed him wherever he went. Business partners, staff, even security questioned why a ragged man with no past suddenly stood at the billionaire's side, but Olivia silenced them with a glance. Jack didn't need their approval. He earned her trust with every move, every watchful eye. Emily adored him. She often sneaked into the gym to watch him practice, clapping excitedly when he showed her simple blocks and stances. Jack laughed, something he hadn't done in years, finding in her the family he had lost. But not everyone was pleased. Olivia's growing empire had enemies, rivals who envied her power, criminals who despised her success. Rumors spread that someone was planning to strike, to remind her she wasn't untouchable. Olivia brushed it off, but Jack sensed the tension. Years of survival had sharpened his instincts, and they told him trouble was brewing. One evening, as they left a charity gala, his eyes scanned the crowd. Something felt wrong, too many eyes lingering, too many shadows shifting. He stayed close to Olivia and Emily, his body alert. The storm was coming. It struck sooner than expected. Olivia's SUV pulled into her private driveway when suddenly 2 vans screeched to a halt behind them. Masked men poured out, armed and fast. Jack reacted instantly, his door flying open. "Stay inside," he barked to Olivia, his voice commanding. Emily clutched her mother's arm, terrified. The attackers rushed forward, their weapons gleaming in the night. Jack stepped into their path, his ragged coat flaring as he moved. His body shifted into the stance Olivia had seen before, the stance of a man ready to fight, no matter the odds. The first thug swung a bat, aiming for Jack's head. Jack ducked low, his palm shooting upward to strike the man's chin. The attacker dropped instantly, weapon clattering. The second lunged with a knife, but Jack sidestepped, twisting the wrist until the blade fell. A swift kick sent him crashing into the side of the van. Olivia watched in stunned silence as Jack dismantled one man after another, his movements precise, deadly, yet controlled. He fought not for glory, but for protection. Each strike carried purpose, the promise he had silently made to keep them safe. But the attackers kept coming. 4 men surrounded him, circling like predators. Jack's chest heaved, his beard damp with sweat, but his eyes burned with focus. One charged from behind, but Jack spun, elbow smashing into his ribs. Another swung wildly, only to be swept to the ground by Jack's leg. The third caught Jack with a punch to the side, staggering him. Olivia gasped, fear spiking. But Jack steadied, his jaw tightening. He planted his feet, drawing on every ounce of training left in him. He wasn't just surviving this fight, he was owning it. Inside the SUV, Emily sobbed. "Mom, he's going to get hurt." Olivia squeezed her close, whispering, "No, sweetheart, he knows what he's doing." But in truth, Olivia's heart pounded. She has seen him fight before, but never against such overwhelming odds. Each second stretched like eternity. Jack slammed one attacker against the van, disarming him with brutal efficiency. Another came from the side, but Jack's fist landed squarely on his jaw, sending him sprawling. Still, they kept coming. It was clear now, this wasn't a robbery. It was a message. Someone wanted Olivia broken. The leader emerged then, taller, broader, his voice cold. "Step aside, old man. She's the one we want." Jack's chest rose and fell, but his stance didn't waver. "You'll get to her over my dead body," the leader smirked. "That can be arranged." He rushed forward with ruthless force, his fists heavy, his strikes brutal. Jack blocked one, then another, but the man's strength was immense. They clashed like titans, each blow echoing in the driveway. Olivia's nails dug into the leather seat, torn between terror and awe. This wasn't just a fight, it was war. The leader landed a brutal punch to Jack's ribs, forcing him to stumble. Pain shot through his body, but Jack gritted his teeth. Years on the streets had taught him resilience. He absorbed the blow, then countered with a sharp strike to the throat. The man staggered, coughing, but didn't fall. They circled each other, eyes locked. For Jack, This wasn't just about Olivia. It was about proving he wasn't the broken ghost he once believed. Every move declared, "I'm still here. I still matter," and he would not let darkness win tonight. Emily's voice broke through the chaos. "Jack, please!" Her small cry fueled him like nothing else. With renewed strength, Jack feinted left, then delivered a powerful spinning kick. His ragged clothes whipped around him as his foot connected squarely with the leader's jaw. The giant collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The remaining thugs froze, staring in shock. Their confidence shattered. They scrambled into the vans, engines roaring as they sped into the night. Silence fell over the driveway, broken only by Jack's ragged breathing. He swayed, bruised and bleeding, but he had won. Olivia burst from the SUV, running to him. "Jack!" She grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear and relief. Emily clung to his leg, sobbing. Jack looked down at her, his face softening despite the blood on his lip. "Told you I'd keep you safe, kid," he whispered. Olivia's throat tightened, tears blurring her vision. This man, this homeless stranger, had just faced down an army for them. He wasn't just a protector, he was family now. Jack swayed, nearly collapsing, but Olivia held him firmly. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered fiercely. The police arrived minutes later, lights flashing, sirens cutting the night. Officers swarmed the driveway, taking statements, gathering evidence. Olivia shielded Jack from their questions, insisting he was with her. Some officers looked skeptical, their eyes lingering on his ragged clothes, his dirty beard. But Olivia's glare silenced them. "He's the reason we're alive," she snapped. Jack stayed quiet, his body aching, but inside, pride swelled. For once, someone wasn't ashamed to stand beside him. Olivia's trust burned brighter than any medal he had ever won. That night, Olivia refused to let him return to the streets. "You're coming upstairs," she insisted as they entered her penthouse. Jack hesitated at the threshold, staring at the polished marble floors and the towering windows. "I don't belong here," he murmured. Olivia shook her head. "You belong wherever you're needed, and right now, that's here." She led him inside, settling him on the couch. Emily appeared with a blanket, draping it over him with childlike care. Jack's throat tightened. He hadn't felt this kind of warmth in years. Days turned into weeks. Olivia arranged for doctors to treat his injuries, though Jack protested. "I've survived worse," he grumbled. But Olivia only smiled. "You don't have to just survive anymore. You can live." Slowly, Jack adjusted to the new rhythm. He trained daily, his strength returning. Emily followed him around like a shadow, eager to learn every stance and punch. "You're like my superhero," she told him one morning, hugging his waist. Jack chuckled softly, though inside, emotion surged. Maybe, just maybe, he could be something close to that. Olivia's advisors continued to protest. "This man has no record, no home, no identity. He's a liability," one argued. Olivia silenced him with a single sentence. "He saved my life and my daughter's. That makes him more valuable than any of you." The room fell silent. Jack overheard later, his chest heavy with emotion. For years he had been invisible. Now someone fought for him. Someone believed in him enough to risk her reputation. He vowed silently that he would never betray that trust. The city buzzed with rumors. The attack had made headlines, though Olivia kept Jack's name out of the papers. Still, whispers spread about the mysterious guardian who had defended the billionaire. Some said he was a former soldier. Others claimed he was an underground fighter, Olivia only smiled when asked. "He's someone who matters," was all she'd say. Jack remained in the shadows, content to let the world guess. What mattered wasn't recognition. It was the bond forming between him, Olivia, and Emily, a bond stronger than blood. One evening, Olivia found Jack on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "You could have died," she said quietly. Jack shrugged. "Better me than you." She stepped closer, her eyes soft. "Why risk it all for someone like me?" Jack turned to her, his gaze steady. "Because when the world wrote me off, you didn't. You gave me a chance to remember who I was. And because no one else was going to protect you." Olivia's breath caught, her heart stirring with emotions she hadn't expected. This man was more than her savior. Emily bounded onto the balcony, breaking the moment. "Mom! Jack! Come inside!" She grabbed Jack's hand, tugging. He followed, smiling faintly. Olivia watched them, warmth flooding her chest. She realized then that Jack had become more than just to protect her. He was part of their family, woven into their lives. He wasn't a ghost of the streets anymore. He was alive, present, needed, and she couldn't imagine life without him. The weeks that followed brought peace. Jack trained quietly, his body regaining strength. Olivia involved him in decisions, valuing his insight. Emily adored him, her laughter echoing through the penthouse. Jack still wore his ragged clothes, still carried his scars, but he was no longer defined by them. He was more than the streets had made him. He was Jack Turner, a fighter, a guardian, a man reborn. But inside, Jack knew the battle wasn't over. Shadows still lurked in the city, threats waiting to strike again. Yet he no longer feared them. He had found purpose, a reason to fight. And this time, he wouldn't fight alone. Olivia and Emily had given him more than shelter. They had given him a place in the world again, and Jack would defend it with every breath left in his body. One night, as the city glittered below, Olivia raised a glass. "To second chances," she said softly. Jack lifted his water, clinking it against hers. His beard still messy, his clothes still simple, but his eyes shone with pride. "To second chances," he echoed. And as Emily wrapped her arms around them both, Jack realized something he never thought possible. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. And for the first time in years, he believed his story still had chapters left to write.